Elena Cross thought she'd buried her past 6 years ago when she fled with nothing but the child growing inside her. She built a quiet life, waitressing, raising her son Noah alone, staying invisible. But fate doesn't forget. One ordinary morning in a neighborhood bakery, she freezes. Across the room, partially hidden in shadow, sits the man she ran from. Victor Moretti, East Coast crime lord, her ex-husband, and the father who never knew his son existed. The moment their eyes meet, Elena knows her carefully constructed world is about to shatter. Some ghosts don't stay buried. Some men don't let go. If you want to see how Elena's past collides with her present in the most explosive way possible, stay until the end of this story. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The bell above the bakery door chimed softly as Elena Cross stepped inside, her 5-year-old son Noah's small hand tucked securely in hers. The scent of fresh bread and cinnamon filled the air, warm and comforting, a stark contrast to the knot of anxiety that had taken permanent residence in her chest 6 years ago and never quite left. "Mommy, can I have the one with chocolate?" Noah asked, his gray eyes, those impossibly distinctive gray eyes, lighting up as he pressed his nose against the display case. Elena felt her heart squeeze. Every time she looked at her son, she saw the ghost of the man she'd run from. Those eyes were unmistakable, a genetic signature she couldn't erase no matter how far she ran or how carefully she hid. "Just one," she said softly, smoothing his dark hair. "We're celebrating, remember? You were so brave at the dentist." The truth was simpler and sadder. They were celebrating because Elena had finally scraped together enough tips from her waitressing job to afford a small treat. 6 years of living paycheck to paycheck, 6 years of looking over her shoulder, 6 years of building a life from absolutely nothing. The bakery was quiet this Tuesday morning, exactly why Elena had chosen it. Fewer people meant fewer chances of being noticed, fewer opportunities for the past to catch up. She'd become an expert at invisibility. Generic clothes, no social media, cash-only transactions, never staying in one neighborhood too long. She was just a single mother struggling to get by. Unremarkable, forgettable, safe. The woman behind the counter smiled as she boxed up Noah's chocolate croissant and Elena's plain coffee. "He's got beautiful eyes," she remarked. "So unusual." Elena's stomach clenched. "Thank you," she managed, already calculating how quickly they could leave. She paid an exact change, another habit from her new life, and guided Noah toward a small table near the window. The morning sun streamed through the glass, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Noah swung his legs happily, completely oblivious to his mother's constant vigilance. "After this, can we go to the park?" he asked, chocolate already smudging the corner of his mouth. "Maybe," Elena said, her eyes scanning the bakery out of habit. A couple in their 70s sharing a muffin, a young woman typing on a laptop, a businessman reading the newspaper, and in the corner, partially obscured by shadow, a man sitting alone with an espresso. Elena's entire world stopped. She knew that profile. She'd memorized it during 2 years of marriage. 2 years that had felt like both a dream and a nightmare. The sharp jawline, the way he held himself with absolute stillness, like a predator conserving energy. The expensive watch that probably cost more than she'd earned in the past year. Victor Moretti, her ex-husband, East Coast crime lord. The man she'd fled in the dead of night 6 years ago while he was away on business. Business that usually involved things she'd trained herself not to think about. The man who had no idea he had a son. Elena's coffee cup trembled in her hand. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. Victor operated out of the city, ran his empire from a penthouse in Manhattan. This was a nothing neighborhood in Queens, miles from his territory, from his world. What were the odds? She forced herself to breathe, to think. Maybe he hadn't seen her. Maybe she could grab Noah and slip out before... Victor's head turned. Their eyes met. And Elena watched as recognition, and then something far more dangerous, flashed across his face. She saw the exact moment his gaze shifted from her to Noah, saw his expression transform from surprise to shock to something that looked almost like hunger. Those eyes, Noah's eyes, the same distinctive gray that marked Victor's entire bloodline, that had marked his father and grandfather before him. There was no hiding it, no explaining it away. Victor rose from his seat with the fluid grace of a man accustomed to absolute control. He was dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her rent, every inch the powerful man she remembered. 6 years hadn't softened him. If anything, he looked more dangerous, more commanding, more terrifying. "Mommy?" Noah's voice was small, uncertain. He'd picked up on her fear, the way children always do. "It's okay, baby," Elena lied, her mind racing through impossible options. The front door was blocked by Victor's approach. The back exit might lead to a kitchen, but she didn't know the layout, and running with Noah would cause a scene, draw attention. "Elena!" Victor's voice was exactly as she remembered, deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence barely leashed. He stopped 3 feet from their table, his presence overwhelming the small space. "It's been a long time." She forced herself to meet his eyes, to not show the terror coursing through her veins. "Victor, aren't you going to introduce me?" His gaze dropped to Noah, and Elena saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Up close, there was no denying the resemblance. Noah was a miniature version of the man standing before them. "We were just leaving," Elena said, already standing, already reaching for Noah's hand. "Sit down." It wasn't a request. Victor's hand gestured toward her chair with casual authority, the kind of command that expected immediate obedience. "We don't have anything to discuss." "We have everything to discuss." His voice dropped lower, dangerous. "How old is he, Elena?" She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Her throat had closed around the truth. Victor did the math himself. She watched it happen in his eyes, the calculation, the realization, the fury. "5?" he asked quietly. "6? Mommy, I'm done." Noah held up his empty plate, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. "Can we go now?" "In a minute, sweetheart." Elena's voice was remarkably steady, considering her entire body was shaking. "What's his name?" Victor's question was soft, but she heard the steel underneath. She could lie. But what would be the point? He'd already seen the truth written in Noah's DNA. Noah. Noah. Victor repeated it like he was tasting the word, testing its weight. "My son's name is Noah." "He's not—" "Don't!" The single word cut through her protest like a blade. "Don't insult my intelligence, Elena. Those are my father's eyes. My eyes. How long did you think you could hide him from me?" "I wasn't hiding him. I was protecting him." "From me?" Victor's laugh was bitter. "From his own father?" "From your world," Elena hissed, keeping her voice low so Noah wouldn't hear. "From the violence, the danger, the—" Glass exploded inward. The front window shattered in a spray of crystalline fragments as gunfire erupted from the street. Elena's scream caught in her throat as Victor moved with inhuman speed, his body covering Noah's before her brain could even process the threat. "Get down!" Victor roared, one arm wrapped around Noah, the other shoving Elena to the floor. More gunshots, the screaming of other customers, the sharp smell of gunpowder and fear. Elena's world had narrowed to Noah's terrified crying, and Victor's body shielding them both as the bakery transformed into a war zone. Through the chaos, she heard the screech of tires, more breaking glass, the distinctive sound of return fire. Victor was speaking rapidly into a phone she hadn't seen him pull. "Locations confirmed. 3 vehicles. Get here now." "What's happening?" Elena gasped, her arms wrapped around Noah, who was sobbing against her chest. "You chose the wrong day to appear in my life again," Victor said grimly. "Someone's been tracking me, waiting for an opportunity." "This is because of you. This is because of what I am," he corrected. "And now it's about him too." The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had started. Elena heard car engines roaring away, the sound of police sirens in the distance. Victor remained motionless, his body still a shield over them, his eyes scanning the destroyed bakery with lethal focus. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "For now." He pulled back slightly, his hands moving over Noah with surprising gentleness, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" Noah shook his head, too shocked to speak. "Elena?" "I'm fine," she managed. "We have to go." The police will be handled. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. My men are 2 minutes out. We need to move. I'm not going anywhere with you. You just became a target. Victor's eyes met hers, and she saw no room for negotiation in them. The moment they saw me protecting you and the boy, you became a target. They'll come back, Elena. With more men, more firepower. They'll find out where you live, where he goes to school, every detail of your carefully hidden life. The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. She'd spent 6 years running from Victor, and in one moment of terrible timing, all that effort had been obliterated. I can disappear again, she said desperately. You can't run from this. Victor stood, pulling them both up with him. Through the shattered window, Elena could see 3 black SUVs pulling up to the curb. Men in dark suits emerged, moving with military precision. These people don't stop, Elena. They'll hunt you for sport. One of the men, tall, scarred, built like a tank, approached Victor with barely concealed urgency. Sir, we need to move. Police are 30 seconds out. Get them to the car, Victor ordered. Carefully. The man, was he a bodyguard? An enforcer? Moved toward Elena and Noah with surprising gentleness. Ma'am, we need to go. Noah clung to Elena, his small body trembling. She looked at the destroyed bakery, at the blood on the floor that wasn't theirs, at the elderly couple huddled behind the counter. This was Victor's world. This was exactly what she'd run from. But he was right about one thing. She couldn't run from this. Mommy? Noah's voice was so small, so scared. What's happening? Elena looked at Victor, at the man who'd just saved their lives, at the father who'd discovered his son in the worst possible way. His expression was unreadable, but she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Possession, purpose, and something that might have been wonder underneath the rage. We're going somewhere safe, she told Noah, making a choice that terrified her even as she made it. Just for a little while. Victor's hand settled on the small of her back, guiding her toward the door. His touch was firm, possessive, inescapable. The car, now. The bodyguard led them out through the chaos, past the gathering crowd, past the approaching sirens, into the back seat of the middle SUV. Victor slid in beside them, his presence filling the space, making it impossible to breathe. The car pulled away from the curb with smooth precision, flanked by the other 2 vehicles. Through the tinted windows, Elena watched her neighborhood, her safe, quiet, invisible neighborhood, disappear behind them. Where are we going? She asked, even though part of her already knew the answer. The only place in this city where I can guarantee your safety, Victor said. He was watching Noah with an intensity that made Elena's chest tight. My home. Your fortress, you mean. His smile was sharp, humorless. Same thing. Noah had stopped crying, but he remained pressed against Elena's side, his eyes wide as he stared at Victor. Who are you? He asked finally, his voice barely a whisper. Elena saw Victor's entire body tense. She watched him struggle with the answer, saw a dozen responses cross his face before he settled on the simplest, most terrible truth. I'm someone who should have been in your life from the beginning, he said quietly, and that's going to change, starting now. The car ride took 40 minutes, winding through the city toward the waterfront. Elena recognized the neighborhood. Wealthy, exclusive, the kind of place where security cameras watched every corner and outsiders were immediately noticed. The SUVs pulled through massive iron gates that opened silently at their approach. The estate beyond took Elena's breath away. It was more than a home. It was a compound. A sprawling mansion surrounded by manicured gardens, a 10-foot stone wall, and security that probably rivaled Fort Knox. This is where you live? Noah breathed, his fear temporarily forgotten in the face of such grandeur. This is where we all live now, Victor corrected, at least until this situation is resolved. The car stopped at the front entrance. More men in suits materialized, forming a protective corridor from the vehicle to the front door. Victor exited first, then turned back to help Noah out. Elena watched, her heart in her throat, as her son placed his small hand in his father's much larger one. It should have been a moment of connection. Instead, it felt like she was watching something slip away from her. Inside the mansion was even more intimidating than the exterior. Marble floors, priceless art, furniture that belonged in museums. A woman in her 50s appeared, elegant, professional, clearly someone used to managing Victor's household. "Mrs. Chen, prepare the east wing," Victor instructed. "2 rooms, everything they need." "Of course, sir." Mrs. Chen's eyes flickered over Elena and Noah with curiosity, but no judgment. "Should I prepare a meal as well?" "Please." Victor paused, then added, "Something a child would like." As Mrs. Chen bustled away, Victor turned to Elena. His expression was harder now. The brief glimpse of something softer when he'd looked at Noah completely vanished. "We need to talk," he said. "But first, let me show you where you'll be staying." "This isn't permanent," Elena said quickly. As soon as it's safe, we'll discuss next steps." His tone made it clear the discussion would not be a negotiation. "This way." He led them through hallways that seemed designed to intimidate, past rooms that screamed wealth and power. The east wing was quieter, more residential. Victor stopped at a door and pushed it open, revealing a bedroom that was easily 3 times the size of Elena's entire apartment. "This is yours," he told Elena. He moved to the next door. "And this is yours, Noah." Noah peeked inside and gasped. The room was perfect for a child, decorated in blues and grays, with a bed that looked like a race car, and shelves already stocked with toys. "Is this really for me?" Noah asked, looking between Victor and Elena uncertainly. "It's yours," Victor confirmed. "Everything in this house is yours now." Elena felt panic rising. This was too much, too fast. Victor was already claiming Noah, already pulling him into this world of wealth and danger. "Noah, why don't you go explore your room?" she suggested. "I need to talk to—" She hesitated, unsure how to identify Victor. "To your father," Victor finished. His eyes never left Noah's face. "Go ahead, son. Your mother and I have a lot to discuss." Noah looked to Elena for permission. She nodded, forcing a smile she didn't feel. Once the door closed behind him, Victor's entire demeanor changed. 6 years, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. 6 years, Elena. You stole 6 years of his life from me. "I didn't steal anything," she shot back, matching his intensity. "I saved him. Do you remember what your life was like? The violence, the constant threats, the protection," Victor interrupted. "The resources, the family he could have had. The prison," Elena countered. "Because that's what it was for me, Victor. A beautiful, luxurious prison where I had no choice, no voice, no— You had everything. Except freedom." The words hung between them, 6 years of resentment and fear and regret compressed into a single accusation. Victor stepped closer and Elena forced herself not to retreat. "You want to talk about freedom?" he asked softly. "You were free to leave. I never locked you in." "You didn't have to." "Your world locked me in. Every time someone looked at me as Victor Moretti's wife, every time I saw what you did, what you were— what I am," he corrected. "What I've always been. You knew what I was when you married me. I was 22 and stupid and in love with a lie. The lie that I loved you?" His face was inches from hers now, his eyes blazing. "That was never a lie, Elena. Not once." She couldn't breathe. The intensity of him, the proximity, the truth she'd run from, it was all too much. "I was pregnant," she whispered. 3 months pregnant when I left. And I knew that if I told you, you'd never let me go. You'd lock me down, put men around me, turn my entire life into a security detail, just like you're doing right now." Victor's jaw clenched. "You should have told me anyway. He's my son. He's our son, and I was protecting him. From me. From this." She gestured around them, at the mansion, at the life he'd built. "From a world where people shoot up bakeries, where 5-year-olds need bodyguards, where—" A soft knock interrupted her. Mrs. Chen appeared with a younger woman carrying trays of food. "The meal you requested, sir," she said quietly. Victor's expression didn't soften, but he stepped back, giving Elena space to breathe. "Thank you. Leave it in the sitting room." As the staff disappeared, Victor turned back to Elena. "This conversation isn't finished," he said, "but Noah needs to eat, and you both need rest. We'll discuss this further tonight." "There's nothing to discuss. As soon as it's safe, we're leaving." His smile was cold, dangerous. "We'll see." He left before she could respond, the door closing behind him with a decisive click. Elena stood in the too large bedroom, surrounded by too expensive furniture, and felt the walls closing in. She was back in Victor's world, back in his home, back under his control. And this time, she had nowhere left to run. Dinner was an awkward affair. Noah, exhausted from the day's trauma and excitement, picked at his food while stealing glances at Victor. Elena maintained a brittle silence, hyper-aware of every movement, every word. Victor watched them both with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He'd changed into more casual clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater, but the change in wardrobe did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. "Eat, Noah," he said gently. "You need your strength." "I'm not very hungry," Noah admitted. "Neither am I," Elena added pointedly. Victor's expression darkened, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening as he read whatever message had appeared. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. "I need to handle something." He left the room, and Elena heard him speaking in rapid, clipped tones in the hallway. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. He was giving orders, making decisions that probably involved violence or money or both. "Mommy," Noah whispered, "are we in trouble?" Elena's heart broke a little. "No, baby, we're safe here." "Who was he? That man?" She hesitated, knowing that whatever answer she gave would change everything. But Noah deserved the truth, or at least as much of it as a 5-year-old could understand. She took a breath. "He's your father, Noah." Noah's eyes went wide. "My father? But I thought, I know I told you he was gone, and he was, for a long time, but now he's here, and..." She struggled for words. "And things are going to be different now." "Different how?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart, but I promise I'm going to keep you safe, no matter what." Victor returned then, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that means you can't leave. Not yet." He glanced at Noah, clearly measuring what he could say in front of the boy. "The people who attacked us today, they've identified where you live. Your apartment has been compromised." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "How?" "They're professionals. Once they had your face, it was only a matter of time." His gaze softened fractionally. "I'm sorry, Elena, but until I can neutralize this threat, you're both staying here, under my protection." It wasn't a request. It was a fact, delivered with the absolute certainty of a man accustomed to having his will enforced. And Elena, looking at her son's exhausted face, at the man who'd saved them both today, felt the last of her resistance crumble. She was trapped, not by walls or locks, but by circumstances she couldn't control and a past she couldn't escape. Victor Moretti had found his son, and he wasn't going to let either of them go. Not now, not ever. The first night in Victor's mansion, Elena didn't sleep. She lay in the oversized bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a house that was both fortress and prison. Every creak made her jump. Every shadow seemed to hold threat. Around 3 a.m, she gave up and moved to the window. The grounds were illuminated by security lights, revealing the full scope of Victor's defenses. Men patrolled the perimeter in shifts. Cameras swept the walls. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. A soft knock made her turn. Victor stood in the doorway, still fully dressed despite the hour. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "What do you want, Victor?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "To talk. Without our son listening." "He's not our son. Not yet. You don't get to claim him after one day. He has my DNA. He has my eyes. He has my protection." Victor moved closer, his presence filling the room. "What more claim do I need? How about 6 years of raising him, of staying up with him when he was sick, of working double shifts to afford his clothes and food?" And her voice cracked. "You don't get to walk in and pretend you've been there all along." "I would have been." The raw anger in his voice made her flinch. "If you'd given me the chance, you would have suffocated us both. I would have protected you." "It's the same thing in your world." Victor's hands clenched at his sides. She could see him fighting for control, that iron discipline he'd always prided himself on being tested by emotions he clearly hadn't expected to feel. "Tell me about him," he said finally, his voice quieter. "Tell me everything I missed." Elena's defenses wavered. There was something almost vulnerable in the request, something that reminded her of the man she'd fallen in love with before she'd truly understood what he was. "Why should I?" "Because despite everything, despite your fear and your anger and your justified reasons for running, he's still my son, and I've already lost 6 years. Don't make me lose another day." She turned back to the window, unable to look at him while she spoke. "He was born in a clinic in Pennsylvania. I paid cash, used a fake name. He weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces. He had your eyes from the moment he opened them." Victor moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Go on." "He said his first word at 11 months, Mama. He started walking at 13 months and hasn't stopped moving since. He's curious about everything. He asks 1,000 questions a day. He's smart, Victor. So smart it scares me sometimes." "He gets that from you." "He gets his stubbornness from you," she countered. "When he wants something, he doesn't give up. He just finds different ways to convince me." A ghost of a smile crossed Victor's face. "What else?" "He loves dinosaurs and outer space. He wants to be an astronaut when he grows up, or a paleontologist. It changes every week." She paused, the memories flooding back. "He had colic for the first 3 months. I thought I was going to lose my mind. There were nights when I walked him for hours, crying as much as he was." "You were alone." "I chose to be alone." "You shouldn't have had to be." Victor's hand touched her shoulder, gentle but firm. "I would have been there, Elena, for all of it." She pulled away from his touch. "And what would that have looked like? You disappearing for days on business? Coming home with blood on your hands? Teaching our son that violence is just another tool? I would have kept you both safe." "Safe?" She turned to face him, anger flaring. "Like how safe we were in that bakery? That's your version of safety, Victor. Bulletproof glass and armed men and always looking over your shoulder." "Yes." His voice was hard now. "Because that's the world we live in. That's the reality you chose to ignore when you ran. You thought you could hide him from what he is, from who he is. But blood tells, Elena, he's my son. That makes him a target whether you acknowledge it or not." The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. Today had proven that. The moment someone had seen Victor protecting them, Noah had become a liability, a vulnerability to be exploited. "I hate you for that," she whispered, "for making him a target just by existing." "I hate myself for it too," Victor said quietly, "but I can't change what I am. I can only protect what's mine." "We're not yours." His eyes met hers, and she saw something dangerous flash in their depths. "You were mine for 2 years. You carried my child for 9 months. You raised my son for 6 years. You've been mine, Elena, even when you were running, especially when you were running. That's insane. That's love." He stepped closer, crowding her against the window. "You think I didn't look for you? You think I didn't tear this city apart trying to find you? I had men searching for 2 years before I finally accepted you were gone. And even then, I never stopped hoping you'd come back. I would never have come back. But fate brought you back anyway." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "And now that I have you again, now that I know about my son, I'm not letting either of you go." Elena's breath caught. This was the Victor she remembered, the one who terrified her even as he drew her in, absolute in his convictions, unwavering in his desires, possessive to a degree that bordered on obsession. "You can't keep us here against our will," she said, but the words sounded weak even to her own ears. "Watch me." Before she could respond, his phone rang. Victor's expression darkened as he answered. "What?" A pause. His jaw tightened. "When?" Another pause. "No. Increase the perimeter. I want men on every entrance, and find out who the hell leaked our location." He ended the call, his hand dropping from Elena's face. "Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be complicated." "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about tonight." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Elena, thank you for telling me about him. About Noah." He left before she could respond, leaving her alone with thoughts that chased themselves in circles until dawn finally broke. The next morning, Elena found Noah already awake, sitting on the floor of his new room, surrounded by toys he'd never owned. Victor sat beside him, showing him how to build something with an expensive-looking construction set. "Mommy!" Noah looked up, his face bright with excitement. "Look what Victor's teaching me!" Elena's heart clenched at the casual use of Victor's name, at the easy familiarity already developing between father and son. "That's nice, sweetheart," she managed. Victor glanced up at her, and she saw the satisfaction in his eyes. He knew exactly what he was doing, building a connection with Noah, making himself indispensable, creating bonds that would be harder and harder to break. "There's breakfast downstairs," he said. "Mrs. Chen made pancakes." The mention of food drew Noah's attention. "Can I go eat, Mommy, please?" Of course. She watched him scramble up and race toward the door. "Walk, Noah. Don't run." Once they were alone, Victor stood, brushing off his jeans. He looked different this morning, more relaxed, almost content. Fatherhood apparently suited him. "You're doing this on purpose," Elena said. "Doing what?" "Bonding with him. Winning him over." Victor's smile was unapologetic. "He's my son. Why wouldn't I bond with him?" "Because it makes it harder for me to leave." "That's the idea." He moved past her toward the door. "Come on. Breakfast is getting cold." Downstairs, the dining room was less intimidating than the formal rooms she'd seen yesterday. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, and the table was set for 3. Mrs. Chen had indeed made pancakes, along with fresh fruit, bacon, and what looked like homemade syrup. Noah was already digging in with the enthusiasm of a child who'd spent too many mornings eating cereal because his mother couldn't afford anything else. "This is amazing," he declared, syrup dripping from his fork. Victor sat at the head of the table, watching Noah with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Pride? Regret? Something deeper and more complex? "I'm glad you like it," he said. "Mrs. Chen is an excellent cook. You can have pancakes whenever you want." "Really? Every day?" "Every single day, if that's what you want." Elena sat down slowly, accepting the coffee Mrs. Chen poured for her. This domestic scene felt surreal. Victor playing the role of devoted father, Noah soaking up the attention and luxury, everything feeling almost normal, except for the armed guards she could see through the windows. "We need to discuss arrangements," Victor said, his tone shifting to business. "Noah needs to be enrolled in school." "He has a school," Elena protested. "He had a school. The one near your compromised apartment that I can't adequately secure." Victor's expression was firm. "There's a private academy 15 minutes from here. Excellent security, small class sizes, the best teachers money can buy." "I can't afford private school." "You're not paying for it, I am." "I don't want your money, Victor." "This isn't about money. It's about safety." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "His old school is in a neighborhood I can't control. Anyone could grab him from the playground. I can't protect him there, Elena." The truth of it made her stomach turn. "You're taking over his entire life." "I'm giving him the life he should have had all along." Victor's gaze was steady. "Education, security, opportunity, everything you couldn't provide alone." The words stung because they were true. She'd done her best, worked herself to exhaustion trying to give Noah a good life, but it had never been enough. There had always been another bill, another worry, another sacrifice. "Mommy, can I go to the new school?" Noah asked, oblivious to the tension. "Victor says they have a science lab and a library with thousands of books." Elena looked at her son's hopeful face and felt something inside her crack. "We'll see, baby." "That means yes," Noah cheered, and Victor's satisfied smile made Elena want to throw something at him. After breakfast, Victor disappeared into what Mrs. Chen called the study, leaving Elena to explore the mansion with Noah. Every room they entered revealed more wealth, more luxury, more evidence of the life Victor had built in her absence. "This place is like a castle," Noah breathed, running his hand along a marble banister. "Do you think there are secret passages?" "I wouldn't be surprised," Elena murmured. They found a library that took her breath away, floor-to-ceiling shelves, comfortable reading chairs, a fireplace that probably cost more than her car. Noah immediately gravitated toward a section of children's books, pulling volumes off the shelf with reverent excitement. "Can I read these?" he asked. "I think that's the point of a library," a new voice said. Elena turned to find a woman in her 30s standing in the doorway. She was beautiful in an understated way, dark hair pulled back, simple but expensive clothes, an air of competence that suggested she was more than just household staff. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," the woman said. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, Mrs. Chen's daughter. I'm Victor's—" She hesitated. "Consultant." "Consultant?" Elena repeated skeptically. Sarah's smile was knowing. "It's a polite way of saying I handle things Victor would rather not deal with personally, including apparently the sudden appearance of a son he didn't know he had." "He told you?" "He tells me everything. It's part of my job to know everything." Sarah moved into the library, her movements graceful. "He also asked me to help with Noah's enrollment at Westbridge Academy. I have all the paperwork here if you'd like to review it." Elena bristled at how quickly Victor was moving, how easily he was reorganizing their lives. "I haven't agreed to that yet." "But you will." Sarah's tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. "Because Victor's right. Noah needs security that only money can buy, and because fighting Victor on this will be exhausting and ultimately futile." "You seem to know him well." "I've worked for him for 8 years. I know exactly who and what he is." Sarah glanced at Noah, who was absorbed in a book about dinosaurs. "I also know that despite everything, despite the violence and the moral ambiguity and the questionable business practices, he's capable of genuine love. And right now, he loves that boy more than anything in this world. He doesn't even know him. He knows him in the way that matters to men like Victor: blood, legacy, the possibility of redemption." Sarah pulled out a folder from her bag. "These are the enrollment forms. The school starts next week. I can handle all the administrative details if you'll just sign the consent forms." Elena took the folder with trembling hands. "This is happening too fast." "Everything with Victor happens fast. He sees what he wants, and he takes it." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "But he's not a monster, Elena. He'll take care of you both. You'll never want for anything. Except freedom." "Is that what you really want, or is it what you think you should want?" Sarah challenged. "I've read your file. I know what your life was like before yesterday. Working yourself to death for minimum wage, struggling to make rent, one emergency away from financial disaster. Is that really freedom, or is it just a different kind of prison?" The question hit too close to home. Elena had spent 6 years telling herself she was free, but the truth was more complicated. She'd traded one cage for another, Victor's golden prison for the grinding poverty that left her perpetually exhausted and afraid. "At least it was my choice," she said quietly. "And you can make choices here too," Sarah replied. "Victor's not going to lock you in a tower, but he's also not going to let you take his son and disappear again. So the question becomes, what kind of life do you want to build within those parameters?" Before Elena could answer, Victor appeared in the doorway. "Sarah, thank you for coming. Thank you for—" But his eyes moved to Elena. "I need to speak with you, privately." Sarah took the hint, gathering her things. "Think about what I said, Elena, and if you need anything at all, you can call me." She handed Elena a business card. "I'm not just Victor's consultant. I'm also someone who understands how complicated this world can be." After Sarah left, Victor moved to where Noah sat reading. "Hey, buddy, why don't you stay here with your books for a few minutes? Your mom and I need to talk." "Okay," Noah said absently, already absorbed in his story. Victor led Elena out of the library, down a hallway, and into a room that was clearly his private office. It was masculine, efficient, with a desk that looked like it commanded empires and walls lined with books that weren't for show. He closed the door and turned to face her. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "Just one?" His expression didn't soften. "The people who attacked us yesterday, we've identified them. They're working for someone I have history with, someone who would love nothing more than to hurt me through the people I care about." Elena's blood ran cold. "What kind of history?" "The kind that ends with one of us dead?" Victor moved to his desk, pulling up something on his computer. "His name is Marcus Volkov, Russian mob, trying to expand into my territory. We've been at war for the better part of a year. And he found out about Noah. Not yet, but he will. Victor's jaw tightened. Which is why you both need to stay here, under my protection, until I can end this permanently. End it how? His eyes met hers. Do you really want to know? She didn't. That was the terrible truth. She didn't want to know the details of what Victor did, how he solved problems, what methods he employed to maintain his empire. How long? She asked instead. I don't know. Could be days, could be weeks. And in the meantime, we're just supposed to live here, play house, pretend this is normal? In the meantime, you keep our son safe and let me handle the threat. Victor moved closer, his presence overwhelming. This is what I do, Elena. This is what I'm good at. Let me protect you. The way you're protecting us is the reason we need protection in the first place. The reason you need protection is because you appeared in public with my son, Victor corrected coldly. The moment anyone saw those eyes, saw me protecting him, the damage was done. You can hate me for my world, but you can't pretend you're not part of it now. The terrible logic of it made her want to scream. He was right. She'd spent 6 years trying to escape Victor's world, but one morning in a bakery had dragged her right back into it. I want to see my apartment, she said suddenly. I want to get our things. It's not safe. Then send your men with me. But I'm not leaving everything we own behind. Noah has clothes there, his favorite toys, things that matter to him. I'll send someone to collect everything, Victor interrupted. No. Elena stood her ground. I'm going. I need to see it for myself. Her voice cracked. I need to say goodbye to the life I built. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Understanding, maybe, or sympathy. Fine. But we go together with a full security detail, and we're in and out in 30 minutes maximum. Thank you. He studied her for a long moment. You built a good life for him, Elena. Despite the circumstances, despite everything, you raised a happy, healthy, bright kid. I can see that. And I'm grateful. Even if I'm furious that I wasn't part of it. The unexpected acknowledgement brought tears to her eyes. I did the best I could. I know. He reached out, hesitating, then let his hand drop. Get Noah. We leave in 15 minutes. The trip to her apartment was surreal. 3 black SUVs, armed men, Victor beside her with that lethal alertness she remembered so well. Noah sat between them, fascinated by the vehicles and the serious men with earpieces. Are they policemen? He asked Victor. Not exactly, Victor replied. They're people who keep me safe. Why do you need so many? Because some people don't like me very much. Why not? Victor glanced at Elena, clearly unsure how to answer. She jumped in. Because your father has an important job, and sometimes people disagree about how he does it. Oh, Noah seemed to accept this. Like when mommy's boss doesn't like how she waits tables? Victor's expression darkened at the reminder of Elena's employment, or former employment, she supposed. She hadn't exactly called in to quit. The neighborhood looked the same as always, but Elena saw it differently now through Victor's eyes. The broken streetlight, the lack of security cameras, the easy access from multiple directions. It was indefensible. That's what one of Victor's men would say. The thought made her chest tight. Her apartment building was worse, a walk-up with a front door that didn't lock properly, and hallways that smelled like cooking and desperation. Victor's men swept it first, checking every room, every closet, even the fire escape. Clear, one of them reported. Victor let Elena and Noah enter their small apartment. It looked exactly as she'd left it yesterday morning, breakfast dishes still in the sink, Noah's pajamas on his bed, her uniform hanging on the bathroom door. 6 years of her life contained in 3 rooms barely bigger than Victor's closet. This is where we lived? Noah asked, looking around with new eyes. After one night in Victor's mansion, their apartment must have looked even smaller, more cramped. This is home, Elena said firmly, even as the words felt hollow. She began packing mechanically. Clothes, toiletries, Noah's favorite stuffed animal. Victor moved through the space silently, taking in every detail. She wondered what he was thinking, probably judging her, comparing this to the luxury he'd offered. You have books, he said finally, stopping at her small bookshelf. Reading's free if you have a library card. He pulled one out, a worn copy of Beloved. You always loved Morrison. The fact that he remembered made her throat tight. Some things don't change. And some things do. He put the book in the box she was packing. You should bring all of them. Why? You have a library that could stock a university. Because they're yours. Because they matter to you. His eyes met hers. Not everything has to be about what I can provide, Elena. Some things are valuable because they're part of your story. The unexpected sensitivity caught her off guard. This was the Victor she'd fallen in love with, the man who paid attention to details, who noticed what mattered to people, who could be thoughtful when he chose to be. It was easy to forget that side of him when faced with the violence and control, but it had always been there, lurking beneath the surface. 5 minutes, one of Victor's men said from the doorway. Elena worked faster, grabbing essentials and memories. A photo of her and Noah at the beach last summer. The drawing Noah had made of their family, just the two of them, holding hands under a bright sun. Her grandmother's recipe box. Victor watched her pack it all, saying nothing, but she saw him notice each item, cataloging what she valued. They were loading the last box into the SUV when Victor's phone rang. His expression went from alert to deadly in seconds. When? He demanded. A pause. How many? Another pause. His hand found Elena's arm, gripped tight. Get everyone back to the house. Now! He ended the call and immediately started issuing orders. Move. Now. Everyone in the cars. What's happening? Elena asked, fear spiking through her. Volkov's men. They're heading this way. Victor practically shoved her into the SUV, Noah already secured beside her. They know we're here. The vehicles roared to life, pulling away from the curb with urgent speed. Through the back window, Elena saw 2 dark sedans turn onto her street, following. They're behind us, she whispered. I know. Victor was on the phone again, coordinating with someone. Stay down. Both of you. Noah's hand found hers, small and scared. Mommy? It's okay, baby, she lied, pulling him close. Everything's okay. But it wasn't okay. The sedans were gaining on them, weaving through traffic with terrifying skill. One of Victor's men in the front seat had drawn a weapon. Sir, they're going to box us in at the next intersection, the driver reported. Victor's response was ice cold. Then we go through them. The SUV accelerated, engine roaring. Elena held Noah tighter, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was Victor's world, car chases and gunfire and split-second life-or-death decisions. This was the life she'd tried to protect Noah from. The intersection approached fast. The sedans moved to flank them, trying to force them to stop. But Victor's driver was better, faster, more skilled. He cut hard to the right, jumping the curb, scattering pedestrians. Hold on, Victor barked. The SUV bounced over the sidewalk, crashed through a chain-link fence, and emerged onto a side street. The sedans tried to follow, but one clipped a parked car spinning out. The other kept coming. One's still on us, the man with the gun reported. Then lose them, Victor ordered. What followed was the longest 10 minutes of Elena's life. High-speed turns, running red lights, the constant threat of the sedan behind them. Noah was crying now, terrified, and all Elena could do was hold him and murmur useless reassurances. Finally, they reached Victor's neighborhood, the one with security and gates and people who knew to look the other way. The SUV screamed through the gates just as they were closing, and the sedan was forced to brake hard, unable to follow. They'd made it. Elena's entire body was shaking as the SUV pulled up to Victor's mansion. Guards swarmed the vehicles, securing the perimeter, weapons drawn. Victor helped them out, his hands gentle despite the violence they'd just escaped. You're safe now, he said quietly. I promise. You're safe. But as Elena carried Noah inside, his small body still trembling against hers, she understood the terrible truth. Safe was relative in Victor's world. And as long as they were part of it, safety would always come at the cost of freedom. The question she had to answer now was whether that price was worth paying. Elena spent the rest of that day in Noah's room, holding him until his trembling stopped and his tears dried. Victor had disappeared immediately upon their return, vanishing into his office with a stream of serious-faced men who all carried weapons and spoke in clipped, urgent tones. She could hear them through the walls, raised voices, the sharp bark of orders being given. The kind of controlled fury that promised violence was coming for someone. "I don't like it here anymore," Noah whispered against her shoulder. "I want to go home." Elena's heart shattered. "I know, baby. I know." But where was home now? Their apartment was compromised. Their old life was gone. And sitting in this bedroom in Victor's fortress, Elena realized with crushing certainty that there was no going back. Around 7 that evening, Mrs. Chen appeared with dinner on a tray, soup and bread, comfort food that Elena couldn't bring herself to eat. Noah picked at his, exhausted from fear and confusion. "Mr. Moretti asked that I tell you he'll come see you both when his business is concluded," Mrs. Chen said gently. "He wanted you to know you're safe here. No one can reach you." "Please thank him," Elena managed, the words tasting like ash. After Noah finally fell asleep, curled around his stuffed dinosaur in his too large bed, Elena returned to her own room and waited. She knew Victor would come. He always did when there was something important to say. He appeared just after 10, looking more dangerous than she'd ever seen him. There was blood on his knuckles. Not his own, she suspected, and his eyes held a coldness that made her breath catch. "Is it done?" she asked. "Not yet." He moved to her window, staring out at the grounds with the intensity of a general surveying a battlefield. "But it will be. Soon." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to end this threat permanently." He turned to face her. "Volkov made a mistake today. He showed his hand, revealed how badly he wants to hurt me. That gives me leverage." "Leverage to do what?" Victor's smile was terrifying. "To destroy him before he can destroy what's mine." Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "This is what I ran from. This exact conversation. You talking about destroying people like it's just another business transaction." "It is a business transaction." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "He threatened my family. There are consequences for that." "Your family?" She laughed bitterly. "We've been back in your life for 2 days, Victor. 2 days. We're not your family. We're hostages in a war you started long before we arrived." "You think I started this?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, his presence overwhelming. "Volkov has been trying to take my territory for a year. He's killed my men, attacked my businesses, pushed and pushed until something had to break. What happened yesterday? What happened today? That's on him, not me. But we're caught in the middle of it." "Yes." He didn't deny it. "You are, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry for keeping you safe. I'm not sorry for protecting my son." He's terrified, Victor. He doesn't understand what's happening. He thinks we're in danger because of you. "We're in danger because someone wants to use you against me," Victor corrected. "There's a difference." "Not to a 5-year-old there isn't." Victor's jaw clenched. She could see the war happening behind his eyes. The man who wanted to be a father battling with the man who'd built an empire on violence and fear. "I'll talk to him," he said finally. "I'll explain." "Explain what? That people want to kill us because of who you are? That this is our life now?" Elena's voice rose. "He's 5, Victor. He should be worried about homework and making friends, not car chases and armed guards. And whose fault is it that he's in this situation?" Victor's control slipped, anger bleeding through. "If you hadn't run, if you'd trusted me enough to tell me about the pregnancy, he would have grown up with this protection from the beginning. He would have understood it as normal instead of traumatic. If I hadn't run, I would have lost myself completely." Elena stood her ground even as Victor loomed over her. "You don't understand what it was like being your wife. Everyone looked at me and saw property, saw an extension of you. I had no identity, no purpose except to be perfect and silent and decorative. That's not what I wanted from you. But it's what your world demanded." She felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. "And I won't let that happen to Noah. I won't let him grow up thinking violence is the answer to everything, that power is the only thing that matters." Victor's hand shot out, gripping her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You think I want that for him? You think I want my son to live the way I've lived? His voice dropped to something raw and almost painful. I want better for him, Elena. I want him to have choices I never had. But first, I have to keep him alive long enough to make those choices. The honesty in his words stole her breath. She saw past the crime lord, past the violence, to the man underneath, the one who was just as terrified as she was, just in a different way. Then end this, she whispered. Do whatever you have to do to end this threat, but don't make Noah watch. Don't let him see the monster you become when you're protecting us. Victor's thumb traced her lower lip, the gesture oddly tender given the context. I've always been a monster, Elena. You just chose not to see it when you loved me. I saw it. I just thought love could change it. Love doesn't change what we are. He released her, stepping back. It just gives us something worth being monsters for. He left before she could respond, the door closing with quiet finality. Elena sank onto the bed, her whole body shaking with emotion she couldn't name. She'd forgotten how Victor could do this, make her furious and frightened and something dangerously close to understanding all at once. He was right about some things, wrong about others, and the line between them was so blurred she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The next morning brought an uneasy routine. Noah was quieter than usual, clingy in a way that broke Elena's heart. He didn't want to leave her side, didn't want to explore his new room or the mansion's many wonders. Victor appeared at breakfast, looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes went immediately to Noah, and Elena saw genuine concern there. Hey, buddy, he said gently, crouching beside Noah's chair. Your mom tells me you were pretty scared yesterday. Noah nodded, not meeting Victor's eyes. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry you had to go through something so frightening. Victor's voice was patient, careful. But I want you to understand something. Those men who chased us, they can't hurt you here. This house, these walls, all the people who work for me, they're here to keep you safe. But why do people want to hurt us? Noah asked, his voice small. Victor glanced at Elena, clearly measuring his words. Because I have something they want, and they think that hurting you might make me give it to them. What do they want? Power, control, things that don't matter as much as you do. Victor reached out slowly, giving Noah time to pull away, and rested his hand on the boy's shoulder. But here's what I need you to understand. I will never, ever let anyone hurt you. Do you believe me? Noah studied Victor with those two knowing gray eyes. You promise? I promise. On everything I am, everything I have, I promise you're safe with me. Something in Victor's absolute certainty must have reached Noah because the boy nodded slowly. Okay. Elena watched the exchange with her heart in her throat. This was what she'd feared most. Victor bonding with Noah, becoming the strong protector their son needed, making it impossible for her to leave even if the opportunity arose. After breakfast, Victor pulled Elena aside while Noah was distracted by a cartoon Mrs. Chen had put on. I'm leaving tonight, he said without preamble. Elena's stomach dropped. What? I'm going to end this, permanently. His expression was grim. I've arranged a meeting with Volkov. Neutral territory, both of us with limited security. We're going to settle this once and for all. That's insane. He'll kill you. He'll try. Victor's smile was sharp, predatory. But I'm betting I'm better at this than he is. And if you're wrong, if he kills you, Elena grabbed his arm, then what happens to us? Then you're free. He said it simply, like it was obvious. I've made arrangements. Sarah has instructions. You and Noah will be taken somewhere safe, given new identities, enough money to start over properly. You'll have the freedom you've always wanted. The thought should have relieved her. Instead, it filled her with terror. I don't want you to die, Victor. Don't you? He studied her face like he was searching for something. I thought my death would solve all your problems. It would create new ones. Noah needs... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Noah needs his father, Victor finished quietly. Even if his father is a monster. You're not a monster to him. You're just... his father. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Vulnerability, hope, fear. Then I'll make sure I come back to him. To both of you. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, the gesture so familiar it made her chest ache. Then he was gone, striding away with that lethal purpose she remembered so well. Elena spent the rest of the day in a fog of anxiety. She tried to keep Noah occupied, reading to him, playing games, pretending everything was normal. But her mind kept circling back to Victor, to the meeting he was walking into, to the very real possibility that he might not come back. Sarah appeared around 4, her expression professional but sympathetic. "Victor asked me to check on you both. He told you about tonight." "He tells me everything," Sarah confirmed. "And before you ask, yes, he has a plan. Yes, it's dangerous. And yes, there's a chance it could go wrong. But Victor Moretti didn't build his empire by being reckless. He knows what he's doing." "That doesn't make me feel better." Sarah's expression softened. "Would it help if I told you I've seen him survive worse? Much worse?" "Not really." "Fair enough." Sarah glanced at Noah, who was building with blocks in the corner. "I brought the enrollment papers for Westbridge Academy. I know the timing isn't ideal, but Victor wanted them signed before he left, just in case. Just in case he doesn't come back." The words hung unspoken between them. Elena took the papers with trembling hands. "What happens if something goes wrong? You said he made arrangements." "You and Noah will be relocated within 12 hours. New city, new identities, 24-hour protection until we're certain the threat is neutralized. Victor's lawyer has set up a trust fund. You'll have access to $5 million to start your new life." $5 million. Enough to never work again. Enough to give Noah everything she'd ever wanted for him. Enough to make her feel sick with guilt and fear. "He really thought of everything," she whispered. "He always does." Sarah hesitated, then added, "He loves you both, you know. In his own complicated, possessive, sometimes destructive way. He loves you. And for a man like Victor Moretti, love is the most dangerous thing he can feel." After Sarah left, Elena sat with the papers spread out before her. Forms for Noah's education, for his future, all predicated on Victor coming back alive. She picked up a pen and signed her name, each stroke feeling like a betrayal of everything she'd fought for. But what choice did she have? Victor was right. Noah needed education, stability, safety. And even if she hated how it was being provided, she couldn't deny her son those things out of pride. Around 7 that evening, she heard the front door open and close. Heavy footsteps, voices conferring in low tones, then silence. Victor appeared in the doorway of the library where she'd been trying to read. He was dressed entirely in black, and there was something about his bearing that made him look more dangerous than she'd ever seen him. "I'm leaving now," he said. Elena stood, the book falling forgotten from her lap. "Victor, don't." He crossed to her quickly. "Don't say goodbye like I'm not coming back. I am coming back, Elena. To you, and to our son." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." His hands came up to frame her face. "I've spent 6 years searching for you. I'm not going to lose you now that I found you again." "This is crazy. There has to be another way." "There isn't." His eyes were intense, burning with something that might have been desperation. "Volkov won't stop. He'll keep coming, keep threatening, until one of us is dead. Better it's settled tonight than dragging on for months with you and Noah in the crossfire. And if you die, if he kills you, then you take our son and you run. You give him the life you wanted for him. You forget about me and this world and everything that happened here." Victor's jaw clenched. "But you make sure he knows I loved him, that I would have been there if I could." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. "I can't do this. I can't sit here and wait to find out if you're alive or dead." "Yes, you can, because you're stronger than you think you are." He wiped away her tears with his thumbs. "You survived 6 years alone with our child. You built a life from nothing. You can survive one more night." He kissed her then, not gentle, not soft, but with the desperation of a man who might not get another chance. Elena kissed him back before she could stop herself, tasting fear and need and 6 years of unresolved feelings. When he pulled away, they were both breathing hard. "I have to go," he said roughly. "Victor, say it." His eyes searched hers. "Say you want me to come back." "Of course I want you to come back. Noah needs you." "I'm not asking about Noah." His grip tightened on her face. "I'm asking about you, Elena. Do you want me to come back?" The question hung between them, loaded with everything they'd left unsaid for 6 years. Elena looked at this man who terrified her and protected her in equal measure, who'd given her the best and worst moments of her life, who was the father of her child and the reason she'd spent years running. "Yes," she whispered. "I want you to come back." Something fierce and triumphant flashed in his eyes. "Then I will." He released her and strode toward the door. She followed him out, watching as his men assembled, 10 of them, all armed, all wearing the same deadly expression Victor wore. At the door, he stopped and looked back at her one more time. "Take care of our son. If I'm not back by morning—" "You'll be back," Elena interrupted, because she couldn't bear to hear him say anything else. Victor's smile was sharp and dangerous and somehow reassuring. "Damn right I will." Then he was gone, and Elena was left standing in the massive foyer of his fortress, listening to the sound of car engines fading into the night. She found Noah already asleep, exhausted from the day's emotions. Elena sat beside his bed, watching him breathe, and tried not to think about what Victor was walking into. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. 9 o'clock became 10, then 11. Midnight came and went. Elena alternated between Noah's room and her own window, watching the gates, waiting for headlights. Around 2 in the morning, she heard Sarah's voice downstairs, speaking urgently to Mrs. Chen. Elena's heart stopped. She raced down the stairs, terror clawing at her throat. "What happened? Is he— We don't know yet," Sarah said, her professional mask slipping to show genuine worry. "His men checked in an hour ago. The meeting happened as planned. But there was—" She hesitated. "There was gunfire. Multiple casualties. We're waiting for confirmation." Elena's legs gave out. She sank onto the bottom stair, her whole body shaking. "He's dead." "We don't know that," Sarah said firmly. "Victor's survived worse. He's resourceful and he's ruthless, and—" The sound of car engines cut her off. They all froze, listening. Multiple vehicles approaching fast, the front gates opening. Elena ran to the door, Sarah right behind her. Through the glass, she could see headlights, 3 SUVs, just like the ones that had left hours ago. The first vehicle screeched to a stop. The back door opened, and Victor stepped out. He was alive. Bloodied, his suit torn, what looked like a graze wound on his temple, but alive. Elena was moving before she realized it, racing down the front steps. She collided with him hard enough to make him grunt, her arms wrapping around him with desperate strength. "You're alive!" she gasped against his chest. "You're alive! You're alive!" "I told you I'd come back." His arms came around her, holding her tight despite his obvious injuries. "I always keep my promises." She pulled back to look at him, taking in the damage. "You're hurt." "Flesh wounds. Nothing serious." He touched her face, his expression softening. "It's over, Elena. Volkov's dead. The threat is neutralized." "You killed him." "Yes." No apology, no justification, just the simple truth. Elena should have been horrified. Should have pulled away, taken Noah, run as far and fast as she could from this man who talked about killing like it was nothing. Instead, she kissed him. She kissed him with relief and fear and something that felt dangerously like the love she'd thought she'd left behind 6 years ago. Victor kissed her back with equal intensity, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were blazing. "Elena, don't," she said. "Don't say anything. Just come inside. Let me clean those wounds. Let you take care of me." He smiled, but there was something vulnerable underneath. "I'd like that." She led him inside, past Sarah's knowing look and Mrs. Chen's quiet efficiency as she brought medical supplies. In a small sitting room away from where Noah slept, Elena tended to Victor's injuries with shaking hands. The graze on his temple was minor, as were the cuts on his knuckles, but there was a knife wound on his side that made her breath catch. "This needs stitches," she said. "I'll have a doctor look at it in the morning." He caught her hand as she pressed gauze against the wound. "Elena, we need to talk about what happens now." "I know." She couldn't meet his eyes. "You won. The threat's gone. We can leave." "Is that what you want?" The question made her finally look at him. Victor was watching her with an intensity that made her heart race, waiting for an answer that would determine everything. I don't know what I want anymore, she admitted. 2 days ago, I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. I was Elena Cross, single mother, survivor. And now you're Elena Moretti, he finished quietly. Mother of my son. The woman I never stopped loving. Victor, I know you don't love me anymore, he continued, his voice rough. I know I lost that right when I let you feel trapped, when I didn't see what my world was doing to you. But I'm asking for a chance, Elena, not to go back to what we were, but to build something new, something better. I don't know if that's possible. It is if we both want it. He stood, moving closer despite his injuries. Stay. Not because you're afraid, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to see if we can make this work. For Noah. For us. Elena looked at this man, bloodied, dangerous, absolutely sincere, and felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. I need time, she whispered. I need to think about what's best for Noah. Take all the time you need. Victor's hand cupped her cheek. I'll wait. I've waited 6 years already. I can wait a little longer. But as Elena stared into his eyes, she wondered if she was being honest with herself. Because the truth was, she'd already made her choice. She'd made it the moment she'd run to him when he stepped out of that car. The moment she'd kissed him with relief and something far more dangerous. The moment she'd realized that despite everything, despite the fear and the violence and the absolute chaos of his world, she still cared about Victor Moretti, and that terrified her more than anything else. The morning after Victor returned brought a stillness to the mansion that felt almost unnatural. Elena woke to find sunlight streaming through her window and the distant sound of Noah's laughter drifting up from somewhere below. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply lie there, processing the fact that they were all still alive. Victor had survived. The threat was over. They were safe. But safety, she was learning, came with its own complications. She found Noah in the kitchen with Victor, both of them covered in flour. They were attempting to make pancakes, though from the mess on the counter and the smoke detector that someone had clearly disabled, the attempt was not going well. Mommy! Noah's face lit up when he saw her. Victor's teaching me to cook. Elena raised an eyebrow at the man who commanded a criminal empire but apparently couldn't operate a stove. Is he now? Victor had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. His temple was bandaged, and she could see the careful way he moved that suggested his ribs were bothering him. But there was something different about him this morning, lighter, almost peaceful. In my defense, Mrs. Chen usually handles breakfast, he said. But Noah wanted to try, so you're burning down your own kitchen? It's only smoking a little. He flipped a pancake that was definitely more black than golden. See? Perfectly fine. Noah giggled, and the sound made Elena's chest tight. This was what she'd wanted for him, a father who would do silly things and make mistakes and be present. She'd just never imagined it would be Victor Moretti standing at a stove, covered in flour, looking more human than she'd seen him in years. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, took one look at the disaster, and sighed with the patience of someone long accustomed to cleaning up after powerful men. Perhaps I should take over from here, sir. Probably wise, Victor agreed. He ruffled Noah's hair, leaving a streak of flour behind. Come on, buddy. Let's go wash up before your mother decides we're both hopeless. Elena watched them go, her emotions tangled in knots she couldn't begin to unravel. This domestic scene should have felt wrong, forced. Instead, it felt dangerously natural. Later that morning, while Noah was absorbed in a new book Sarah had brought, Victor found Elena in the library. He moved stiffly, and she could see the pain he was trying to hide. You should be resting, she said. I've rested enough. He settled into the chair across from her with visible effort. We need to discuss arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Permanent ones. Victor's expression was serious now, the playful father from this morning replaced by the calculating businessman. The immediate threat is gone, but my world doesn't stop being dangerous just because Volkov is dead. You and Noah need legal protection beyond just living in my house. What are you suggesting? Marriage. He said it simply, like he was proposing a business merger rather than a lifetime commitment. If you're my wife again, you have legal rights, protection, security that can't be easily challenged. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. You want to get married again? After everything? I want Noah to have my name legally. I want you both protected in ways that only marriage can provide. Victor leaned forward, his eyes intense. This isn't about romance, Elena. This is about practical reality. If something happens to me, you need to be able to make decisions about my estate, my businesses, Noah's future. This is insane. This is necessary. His voice softened. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to let me protect you in every way I can. And what do I get in this arrangement besides protection I never asked for? Victor's smile was sharp. Everything. Money, resources, power of your own. You wouldn't be my property, Elena. You'd be my equal partner. Any decisions about Noah, about your life, about how you want to spend your time, you'd have full autonomy. Except the freedom to leave. Except that, he agreed. I won't lie to you. If you marry me, if you take my name again, you're committing to this life, to me, to whatever that means. Elena stood, pacing to the window. The ground stretched out before her, beautiful and fortified in equal measure. You're asking me to give up everything I fought for. I'm asking you to trade one version of freedom for another. Victor rose, moving to stand behind her. She could feel the heat of him even without touching. You were free before, Elena. Free to work yourself to exhaustion, free to struggle and worry and wonder if you'd make rent. Is that really better than this? It was honest. And this isn't? His hands settled on her shoulders, gentle despite their strength. I'm being completely honest with you. I want you here. I want Noah here. I want us to be a family, complicated and imperfect as that might be. There's no deception in that. There's possession. Yes, he admitted. Because I'm a possessive man, Elena. I don't know how to be any other way. But possession doesn't have to mean imprisonment. It can mean protection, devotion, the kind of commitment that doesn't waver when things get hard. Elena turned to face him, searching his expression for signs of manipulation or coercion. But all she saw was brutal honesty and something that looked like hope. I need time to think about this, she said. I know. Victor's hand came up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Take whatever time you need. But Elena, while you're thinking, pay attention to what we are together. Not what we were 6 years ago, but what we could be now. Before she could respond, Noah appeared in the doorway, holding a book. Victor, you said you'd read to me. Victor's entire expression transformed, the hardness melting away. I did say that, didn't I? He glanced at Elena. We'll continue this conversation later. She watched him settle onto the couch with Noah, the boy curling against his father's side with easy trust that broke her heart. Victor's voice was gentle as he read, patient with Noah's interruptions and questions. This was the man she'd fallen in love with years ago. Attentive, present, capable of tenderness when he chose to show it. She'd forgotten this side of him existed beneath all the violence and control. The question was whether it was enough. Over the next few days, Elena found herself in a strange limbo. Victor gave her space while simultaneously making his presence essential to their daily lives. He had breakfast with them every morning, taught Noah to play chess in the evenings, and consulted with Elena about every decision regarding their son. It was a careful courtship disguised as co-parenting, and Elena hated how effective it was. Sarah became an unexpected ally, helping Elena navigate the complexities of Victor's world without judgment or pressure. He's different with you here, Sarah observed one afternoon while they watched Noah play in the gardens, with 2 bodyguards keeping subtle watch. More human. He's performing, Elena said. No, he's not. Sarah's voice was firm. I've worked for Victor for 8 years. I know when he's performing. This is him trying to be the man he thinks you need him to be. And what if that man doesn't really exist? Then you'll figure it out and make your choice accordingly. Sarah glanced at her. But I think he does exist, Elena. He's just been buried under years of violence and survival. You and Noah are excavating him. The observation stayed with Elena, coloring how she watched Victor interact with their son. She saw the moments when his instincts toward control warred with his desire to be a good father. Saw him catch himself before issuing orders, instead asking Noah what he wanted to do. Saw him learning to be patient with a 5-year-old's logic and needs. It wasn't perfect, but it was genuine. A week after Victor had killed Volkov, Elena woke to find him sitting on her balcony, staring at the sunrise. His ribs were healing, but she could still see the tension in his shoulders that suggested pain. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, joining him outside. "Too much on my mind." He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I have to go to the city today. Business that can't wait any longer." Fear spiked through her. "Is it dangerous?" "No, just tedious meetings with lawyers and accountants." He finally turned to her. "But I wanted you to know I'm leaving, and that I'm trusting you not to run while I'm gone." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. He was giving her an opportunity, testing whether she'd stay by choice or flee at the first chance. "I'm not going to run," Elena said quietly. "Where would I go?" "You were right. My old life is gone, and Noah is happy here." "What about you?" Victor's eyes searched hers. "Are you happy here?" She wanted to lie, to maintain her distance and resistance. But something about the vulnerability in his question demanded honesty. "I'm less miserable than I expected to be," she admitted. "You're trying, Victor. I can see that. You're trying to be what we need." "Is it working?" "I don't know yet." She pulled her robe tighter against the morning chill. "Ask me again in a few weeks." Victor smiled, something genuine and almost relieved. "I can work with that." He left an hour later, surrounded by his security detail, but somehow looking less fortified than usual. Noah waved from the window, already comfortable with his father's comings and goings. Elena spent the day in a strange state of awareness, noticing all the ways Victor's presence had become woven into their routine. The house felt emptier without him. Noah asked about him 3 times before lunch. Even the staff seemed more subdued, moving through their duties with less energy. It terrified her how quickly she'd adjusted to having Victor in her life again. Around 4 that afternoon, a delivery arrived, dozens of boxes addressed to Elena. She opened them with growing confusion to find clothes, shoes, jewelry, all in her size, all impossibly expensive, all chosen with intimate knowledge of her taste. "Mr. Moretti arranged it," Mrs. Chen explained. "He said you'd need a wardrobe appropriate for your position." "My position as what?" "As his partner, miss." Mrs. Chen's expression was gentle. "There will be events, functions, places where appearance matters. He wants you to have choices." Elena stared at the designer labels and handcrafted shoes. This was Victor's world, where a wardrobe cost more than most people made in a year, where appearance was armor and status was power. She should have been angry at the presumption. Instead, she found herself trying on a dress that fit perfectly, made from fabric so luxurious it felt like sin against her skin. The woman in the mirror looked like someone else, someone confident and elegant and expensive, someone who belonged in Victor Moretti's world. The thought should have repulsed her. It didn't. Victor returned that evening, looking exhausted but satisfied. Noah launched himself at his father with enthusiasm that made Elena's chest ache. "Did you have a good day?" Victor asked, swinging Noah up despite his healing ribs. "We played in the garden, and I read 3 whole books, and Mommy got lots of pretty dresses." Victor's eyes found Elena over Noah's head, questioning. She'd changed back into her regular clothes, but she knew he could tell she'd tried them on. "They fit," she said simply. "Good." His expression was carefully neutral. "I hoped they would." After Noah was in bed, Victor found her in the library again. It was becoming their place for difficult conversations, away from curious ears and prying eyes. "Thank you," she said before he could speak. "For the clothes, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He settled into his usual chair, moving more easily now. "You're living in my house, raising my son, dealing with my world. The least I can do is make sure you have what you need to navigate it." "They're more than I need. They're what you deserve," Victor interrupted. "You deserve beautiful things, Elena. You always did. I just never made sure you felt free to enjoy them before." The acknowledgement of his past failures caught her off guard. "You're different than you were." "Losing you changed me." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I had a lot of time to think about what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. And one thing became very clear. I treated you like a possession instead of a partner. I made decisions for you instead of with you. I loved you, but I didn't respect you. And now? Now I'm trying to do better." His eyes met hers, intense and honest. I can't change what I am, Elena. I'm still going to be controlling sometimes, still going to want to protect you to the point of suffocation, but I'm asking you to call me on it when I cross the line, to demand the respect and autonomy you should have had all along. Elena studied him, searching for manipulation or calculated strategy, but all she saw was sincerity and the kind of self-awareness she'd never expected from Victor Moretti. Why? She asked. Why does this matter so much to you? You could have any woman you want, someone who understands this life, who wants this life. Why fight so hard for someone who ran from you? Victor was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw in a way she'd rarely heard. Because you saw me, Elena. The real me, underneath all the power and violence. You saw the man I wanted to be, and loved him anyway. He stood, moving to the window. Everyone else in my life wants something from me. Power, money, protection, status. You just wanted me, the person, not the position. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I did want you, she said softly. I just couldn't reconcile the man I loved with the things you did. I know. He turned back to her. And I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to see that both versions can exist in the same person, that I can love my son and still be capable of violence, that I can be gentle with you and ruthless with my enemies, that complexity doesn't make me a liar, it makes me human. The honesty of it stole her breath. This was the conversation they'd never had 6 years ago, the understanding they'd never reached. Victor laying himself bare, admitting his contradictions instead of hiding them. I'm afraid, Elena admitted, of letting myself care about you again, of building a life here and then watching it fall apart. Then don't care about me, Victor said, and the pain in his voice was real. Care about Noah. Care about the stability we can give him. Care about the future you can build for yourself with the resources I'm offering. Those things don't require loving me. But you want me to love you? Of course I do. He crossed to her, sinking to his knees before her chair so they were eye to eye. I want you to love me the way you did before, but better, clearer, with full knowledge of who I am and what I'm capable of. But I'll take whatever you're willing to give, Elena. Partnership, co-parenting, friendship, anything except your absence. Elena's hand moved of its own accord, touching his face, tracing the scar on his temple from the fight with Volkov. You really almost died that night. Yes. And if you had? If he'd killed you? Then you'd have been free, Victor said simply. Sarah had instructions. You and Noah would have been taken care of, protected, given everything you needed to start over properly. I wouldn't have wanted that. The admission escaped before she could stop it. Your freedom, not like that. Victor's hand covered hers where it rested against his face. What would you have wanted? I don't know, she whispered. I'm still trying to figure that out. Then figure it out here, he said. Stay, not as my prisoner, not out of fear or obligation. Stay as my partner. Help me raise our son. Build something with me that's different from what we had before. And if I can't, if I try and it doesn't work, then we'll figure that out together. Victor's voice was steady, certain. Give us a chance, Elena. Give me a chance to prove I can be what you need. She looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd run from 6 years ago. The intensity, the possessiveness, the barely contained violence. But she also saw something new, humility, patience, and a willingness to change that she'd never expected. I'll think about the marriage, she said finally. I'm not promising anything, but I'll think about it. Victor's relief was palpable. He pressed a kiss to her palm, the gesture both tender and possessive. That's all I'm asking. He stood, and she saw him wince as his ribs protested the movement. Without thinking, Elena reached out to steady him. You should be resting, she said. I'm fine. You're injured and exhausted and probably in more pain than you're admitting. She guided him toward the couch. Sit down before you fall down. Victor allowed himself to be led, a small smile playing at his lips. I like this bossy side of you. Someone has to keep you from killing yourself through sheer stubbornness. She settled beside him, close enough to touch. Does it hurt badly? The ribs are worse than the rest, he admitted. The doctor said another week before they're fully healed. And you've been playing with Noah, lifting him, wrestling with him. Elena shook her head. You're going to make it worse. He's my son. I've missed 6 years of playing with him. I'm not missing another day because of some cracked ribs. The sentiment was frustrating and endearing in equal measure. Elena found herself reaching for him, touching his side gently where she knew the injury was. You can be a father without being reckless, she said softly. Victor's hand covered hers. Can I? The vulnerability in the question made her throat tight. She understood suddenly that he was terrified. Terrified of failing Noah, of repeating his own father's mistakes, of being inadequate in the role he wanted so desperately to fill. Yes, she said firmly. You can. You're already doing it. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, Victor confessed. I watch you with him and you're so natural, so patient. And I want to be good at this. I want to be the father he deserves. You don't have to be perfect, Victor. You just have to be present, trying. That's what matters. He pulled her closer, carefully mindful of his injuries, until she was tucked against his uninjured side. They sat like that in comfortable silence, the library quiet around them. Tell me about his first birthday, Victor said eventually. I want to know everything. So Elena told him about the small cake she'd made, how Noah had gotten more frosting on himself than in his mouth, about his first steps and his first words, about every milestone Victor had missed, every moment she'd navigated alone. Victor listened with absolute attention, occasionally asking questions, sometimes looking pained when she described particularly difficult moments. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Thank you, he said finally, for taking care of him, for being everything he needed when I couldn't be there. You would have been there if you'd known. Would I? Victor's voice was thoughtful. 6 years ago, would I have been the father he needed? Or would I have been so focused on control and protection that I'd have smothered you both? Elena considered the question honestly. I don't know. Maybe both. That's what I thought. He kissed the top of her head, the gesture casual and intimate. Maybe you were right to run. Maybe we both needed these 6 years to become people who could actually make this work. The idea had never occurred to her, that their separation might have been necessary, that the pain and struggle might have served a purpose. But looking at Victor now, seeing the man he'd become, she wondered if there might be truth to it. I'm tired, she admitted, the emotional weight of the evening catching up to her. Then sleep. Victor adjusted his position, making room for her to rest more comfortably against him. I've got you. Elena knew she should get up, maintain the distance she'd worked so hard to preserve. But his warmth was comforting, his steady breathing soothing, and for the first time in years she felt truly safe. So she let herself rest against him, let herself accept the comfort he was offering. And as she drifted toward sleep, she felt Victor's hand stroking her hair with infinite gentleness. I love you, Elena, he whispered, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. I never stopped. I never will. She didn't respond, pretending to be more asleep than she was, but his words settled into her heart, taking root in places she'd thought were permanently closed to him. And in the morning, when she woke to find herself carried to her bed with a blanket tucked carefully around her, she found herself smiling despite everything. Victor Moretti was breaking down her defenses one gentle gesture at a time, and the terrifying part was that she was starting to let him. 2 weeks after Victor's return from his confrontation with Volkov, Elena stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, staring at the woman reflected back at her. She wore one of the dresses Victor had bought, deep emerald silk that brought out the green in her hazel eyes. Her hair was styled, her makeup subtle but elegant. She looked like she belonged in Victor's world. The realization didn't terrify her as much as it should have. You look beautiful, Mommy, Noah said from the doorway, dressed in his own formal clothes for the dinner Victor had planned. Elena turned, her heart swelling at the sight of her son. He'd adjusted to life in the mansion with the resilience of childhood, accepting Victor's presence as natural now. The nightmares from the bakery attack had faded. He was happy, thriving even. Thank you, sweetheart. She smoothed his collar, straightening his little bow tie. Are you excited for tonight? Victor says there's going to be fancy food and I get to stay up late. Noah's eyes sparkled with excitement. And he says this dinner is really important. It was important. Victor had invited several of his business associates, legitimate ones, he'd assured her, to meet his family. It was a statement, a public claiming of Elena and Noah as his. She'd agreed to it 3 days ago, finally making a decision that had been building since that night she'd fallen asleep in his arms. She was going to stay. Not out of fear or lack of options, but because somewhere in the past 2 weeks she'd started to believe in the possibility Victor was offering. Victor appeared behind Noah, looking devastating in a tailored black suit. His ribs had healed, the last of his visible injuries faded. But there was something different about him tonight, an intensity in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "Can you give us a minute, buddy?" Victor asked Noah. "I need to talk to your mom about something." Noah nodded and scampered off, leaving them alone. Victor stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with deliberate care. "You look incredible," he said, his voice low. "You bought the dress. You knew what it would look like." "I knew the dress would be beautiful. I didn't know you'd take my breath away." He moved closer, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I have something for you." Elena's heart hammered as he opened the box to reveal a ring. Not her old engagement ring. This was different. A deep green emerald surrounded by diamonds, elegant and distinctive. "Victor, let me say this," he interrupted gently. "I know you haven't given me an answer about remarriage yet. This isn't me pushing for one. This is me asking you to wear this tonight as a symbol that you're mine, that we're together, building something. You don't have to marry me tomorrow or next week or next month. But I want everyone who walks through that door tonight to know that you and Noah are under my protection, that you're my family." Elena stared at the ring, her emotions tangled. It was beautiful and meaningful and exactly the kind of gesture she'd learned to expect from Victor, grand and possessive and somehow tender all at once. "What if I'm not ready?" she whispered. "Then I'll wait until you are." Victor took the ring from the box, holding it between them. "But wear this tonight. Not as a promise, but as a possibility. Can you do that?" She extended her hand, watching as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, catching the light with emerald fire. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "You're beautiful." Victor raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles just below the ring. "And you're mine, Elena, whether you're ready to admit it or not." The possessiveness should have angered her. Instead, it sent heat rushing through her veins. She'd spent 6 years trying to escape what she felt for this man, and it hadn't worked. He was in her blood, as essential and dangerous as oxygen. "We should go down," she managed. "Your guests will be arriving soon." Victor's smile was knowing, like he could read every thought crossing her mind. "In a moment. First, I need you to understand something. Tonight, people will see us together for the first time. They'll make assumptions, draw conclusions. Some of them will think you're with me for money or status. Others will wonder how I managed to convince you to stay. And what's the truth? The truth is complicated." He cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. "But the story we're telling tonight is simple. You're the woman I love, the mother of my son, my partner in everything that matters. Can you play that role?" "Is it a role?" Elena challenged. "Or is it the truth?" Victor's eyes darkened with something that looked like hope and hunger mixed together. "You tell me." Before she could answer, Noah's voice called up the stairs. "The first people are here." The moment shattered. Victor stepped back, offering his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. "Shall we?" Elena took his arm, the weight of the ring on her finger feeling both foreign and right. They descended the grand staircase together, Noah racing ahead of them with boyish enthusiasm. The dinner was an exercise in controlled performance. Victor introduced her to associates and their wives, all of them carefully polite, clearly curious about the woman who'd captured Victor Moretti's attention. Elena played her part, gracious, charming, every inch the partner Victor had claimed she was. But it was the moments between performances that mattered most. The way Victor's hand found the small of her back whenever she seemed uncertain. The way he deferred to her opinion about Noah's bedtime when someone asked. The way he watched her across the room with an intensity that made her feel like the only woman in the world. After dinner, while the men retreated to Victor's study for brandy and whatever business they couldn't discuss in mixed company, Elena found herself on the terrace with Sarah and two of the wives. "You're good for him," Sarah said quietly, once the other women had moved to admire the gardens. "I've never seen Victor like this." "Like what?" "Happy." Sarah's smile was genuine. "He's built an empire, accumulated more wealth and power than most people dream of. But he's never been happy, not until you and Noah came back into his life." Elena touched the ring on her finger, turning it absently. "I'm terrified I'm making a mistake, that I'm letting myself believe in something that can't last." "Everything ends eventually," Sarah said pragmatically. "The question is whether it's worth the risk while it lasts. And from where I'm standing, what you and Victor have, it's worth the risk." Before Elena could respond, raised voices carried from Victor's study. Not angry exactly, but intense. She recognized Victor's tone, the one he used when establishing boundaries that weren't up for negotiation. Sarah frowned. "Wait here." She disappeared inside, leaving Elena alone on the terrace. Through the window, she could see Victor's study, could make out his silhouette among the other men. Whatever they were discussing, it was serious. A few minutes later, Sarah returned with Victor. His expression was carefully neutral, but Elena knew him well enough now to see the tension in his shoulders. "I need to speak with Elena privately," Victor said to the others. "Please excuse us." He guided her away from the terrace, through the house to his private office. Once the door was closed, his composure cracked slightly. "There's a problem," he said without preamble. Elena's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "One of my associates received information tonight. There's a federal investigation into some of my business dealings. Nothing that involves you or Noah directly, but—" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "It's going to get messy. There will be scrutiny, possibly surveillance, definitely legal complications." "How bad?" "Bad enough that my lawyers are already drafting contingency plans." Victor moved to his desk, pulling up files on his computer. "I've kept most of my operations legitimate for years now, but there are always gray areas. Things that can be interpreted multiple ways depending on who's looking." Elena felt the familiar fear rising. This was the reality of Victor's world. The constant threat of consequences catching up, of violence from within the system as well as outside it. "What does this mean for us?" she asked. Victor turned to face her, his expression grave. "It means I need to make some decisions, hard ones, about what I'm willing to risk and what I'm willing to sacrifice." "I don't understand." He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "I've been offered a deal. Full immunity for cooperation in a larger investigation. They want information about people higher up the food chain, people I've done business with over the years." "You'd have to testify?" "Eventually. But more than that, I'd have to step away from certain aspects of my empire, divest from anything even remotely questionable, essentially dismantle the power structure I've spent 15 years building." Elena stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "And if you don't take the deal?" "Then I fight the charges. Probably win because I'm very good at covering my tracks, but live under constant investigation. Every business deal scrutinized, every associate questioned, every move I make documented by federal agents." His grip on her hands tightened. "And you and Noah would be caught in that spotlight. Your lives would become public record. Noah would grow up knowing his father is under investigation, possibly watching me go to trial, definitely seeing things a child shouldn't see." The weight of the decision was staggering. "What do you want to do?" "What I want doesn't matter," Victor said quietly. "What matters is what's best for our son, for you, for the life I promised to give you. Victor, I'm taking the deal." His voice was firm, decided. "I'm going to cooperate, divest from anything questionable, and rebuild on completely legitimate ground. It'll take years. I'll lose power, lose connections, probably lose the respect of half the people in that dining room tonight. But Noah will grow up without a father in prison. You'll have a partner whose business dealings you don't have to question. And we'll build something clean, something real." Elena's eyes filled with tears. This was the sacrifice she'd never expected. Victor choosing them over the empire that had defined him for so long. "You'd give up everything?" she whispered. "Not everything." He pulled her close, his voice rough with emotion. I'd still have you. I'd still have Noah. That's not giving up everything. That's keeping what actually matters. She kissed him then, pouring 6 years of complicated feelings into it. Fear and hope and gratitude and something that felt dangerously close to love. Victor kissed her back with equal intensity, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her impossibly closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "For real this time. Not because you're scared or trapped or running out of options. Marry me because you want to build this new life together, because you believe in what we could be." Elena looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd been afraid to want. A partner who would sacrifice his empire for their family. A father who put his son's future above his own power. A man who was choosing to change, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be better for them. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I'll marry you." Victor's relief and joy were palpable. He kissed her again, softer this time, like a promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotions he'd rarely shown. "I love you, Elena. I never stopped. I never will. I know." She touched his face, tracing the strong line of his jaw. "And I think I never stopped loving you either. I just forgot how to trust it." "Then trust me now," Victor said. "Trust that I'm choosing you, both of you, over everything else." They returned to the dinner party together, the ring on Elena's finger now meaning something entirely different than it had an hour ago. Victor made a quiet announcement to his assembled guests. He and Elena were engaged, the wedding would be soon, and significant changes were coming to his business operations. Some of the men looked confused, others looked disappointed, like they'd lost a valuable ally. But Victor's expression made it clear the decision was final and not up for discussion. After the last guest departed, Elena found Noah asleep on the couch in the library, worn out from his late night. Victor lifted him carefully, carrying him upstairs with the tenderness that still caught Elena off guard. Together, they tucked Noah into bed. Victor kissed their son's forehead, lingering for a moment before stepping back. "I missed this," he said quietly as they left Noah's room. 6 years of bedtimes and story times, and just being there. "I'm not missing another night." "You won't have to," Elena promised. In the hallway outside her bedroom, Victor pulled her close one more time. "I'm going to make mistakes," he admitted. "I'm going to be overprotective and controlling and probably drive you crazy sometimes." "Probably," Elena agreed with a small smile. "But I'm going to try. Every day, I'm going to try to be the man you and Noah deserve." "That's all I'm asking." She kissed him softly. "Just try. We'll figure out the rest together." Victor held her for a long moment, and Elena let herself sink into the embrace. This was her future, complicated and imperfect, and built on the ruins of what they'd been before. But it was also real, honest, and chosen freely rather than forced by circumstance. "Get some rest," Victor said finally. "Tomorrow, we start planning a wedding." "Tomorrow," Elena agreed. But as he started to leave, she caught his hand. "Victor, thank you for choosing us." His smile was soft, genuine. "I'm not choosing you over my empire, Elena. You are my empire now. You and Noah. Everything else is just details." He left her then, and Elena entered her bedroom with her heart full. She looked at the ring on her finger, at the beautiful dress she wore, at the life she was building in this fortress that was slowly becoming home. 6 years ago, she'd run from Victor Moretti because loving him meant losing herself. Now, loving him meant finding a version of herself she hadn't known existed, stronger, braver, capable of accepting both the light and darkness in the man she'd chosen. She changed for bed, slipping between expensive sheets in a room that still felt too large but was starting to feel like hers. As she drifted toward sleep, she thought about the future stretching ahead. There would be legal battles as Victor navigated his deal with the government. There would be adjustments as they learned to be partners rather than adversaries. There would be challenges raising Noah in a world that was safer than before, but still complicated by his father's past. But there would also be mornings making burnt pancakes together, evenings reading bedtime stories as a family, nights falling asleep in Victor's arms, finally feeling safe enough to let down all her defenses. It wasn't the life she'd imagined 6 years ago when she'd run. It was something different, something better. It was a second chance neither of them had expected, but both of them desperately needed. 3 months later, Elena stood in a private garden on Victor's estate, wearing a simple ivory dress that made her feel beautiful without being ostentatious. Noah stood beside her in a little suit, holding the rings with solemn importance. The ceremony was small, just Sarah, Mrs. Chen, Victor's lawyers who'd become unexpected friends during the complicated process of legitimizing his business empire, and a handful of people who genuinely cared about their happiness rather than their status. Victor waited at the altar, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. When she reached him, he took her hands and she felt them trembling slightly. "You showed up," he said softly, for her ears alone. "Of course I showed up. I wasn't sure you would. Right up until this moment, I thought you might change your mind." Elena squeezed his hands. "I'm not running anymore, Victor. Not from you. Not from this. I'm exactly where I want to be." The ceremony was brief, the vows simple but heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them married, Victor kissed her with a passion that suggested he still couldn't quite believe she was real, that she'd chosen him. Noah cheered, breaking the solemnity of the moment, making everyone laugh. The reception was equally intimate. Good food, better wine, and the kind of easy conversation that came from being surrounded by people who genuinely wished them well. Late in the evening, after Noah had been put to bed by Mrs. Chen, Elena found herself dancing with Victor in the garden where they'd married. Music drifted from speakers, stars glittered overhead, and for the first time in 6 years, Elena felt completely at peace. "Happy?" Victor asked, his arms around her waist. "Terrifyingly so," Elena admitted. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "Something probably will eventually," Victor said with characteristic honesty. "Life isn't perfect, even when you have money and power and the best lawyers in the country. But we'll handle it together." "Together," Elena echoed, liking the sound of that. Victor pulled her closer, resting his chin on top of her head as they swayed to the music. "I have something to tell you." "Should I be worried?" "No. Actually, you'll probably approve." She felt him smile against her hair. "I've been working with a team to establish a foundation. Programs for single mothers, job training, affordable housing, education assistance, all the things you needed 6 years ago and couldn't find." Elena pulled back to look at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Victor, it's not charity," he said quickly. "It's investment in people who deserve better than the hand they were dealt. And I want you to run it. Use your experience, your insight into what actually helps rather than what sounds good in a press release." "You're giving me a foundation to run?" "I'm giving you purpose beyond being my wife," Victor corrected. "Something that's entirely yours. You said you wanted autonomy, wanted to matter beyond just being Victor Moretti's partner. This is that. Your project, your vision, your legacy." Elena kissed him hard, gratitude and love overwhelming her ability to speak. When she finally found her voice, it was thick with emotion. "Thank you for seeing what I needed even before I did." "That's what partnership means," Victor said simply. "Paying attention, caring about each other's happiness as much as our own." They danced until the music ended, until the stars began to fade with approaching dawn. And when Victor led her inside, up to the bedroom they now shared, Elena went willingly. She'd spent 6 years building walls to keep Victor out. Now she was tearing them down deliberately, letting him in fully for the first time. It was terrifying and exhilarating and exactly what she wanted. Weeks turned into months. The foundation launched to genuine success, giving Elena work that mattered and fulfillment she'd been missing. Victor's cooperation with federal investigators paid off. He received immunity, divested from questionable businesses, and rebuilt his empire on completely legitimate ground. It took longer, required more patience, but the end result was a business he could be proud of rather than one he had to hide. Noah started at Westbridge Academy and thrived, making friends and excelling in his classes. He had both parents now, a stable home, and the kind of security Elena had always dreamed of providing but never thought possible. On Noah's 6th birthday, they threw a party in the mansion's gardens. Children ran wild under the watchful eyes of security that looked like regular staff. Parents mingled, impressed by the venue, but unaware of the complicated history that had brought them all together. Elena stood watching Noah open presents, Victor's arm around her waist, and felt something she'd never expected to feel in this place. Complete happiness. Not the fragile kind that could shatter at any moment, but the deep settled kind that came from knowing exactly where she belonged. "What are you thinking?" Victor asked, nuzzling her temple. "That I was wrong," Elena said. 6 years ago, I thought running was the only way to protect Noah. But the real protection wasn't distance. It was this: a father who would give up everything for his family. A home built on honesty rather than secrets. A partnership where we face challenges together instead of hiding from them. "You weren't wrong to run," Victor said quietly. "I gave you every reason to. But I'm grateful every day that fate brought you back." "Not fate," Elena corrected, looking up at him. "Choice. I'm choosing this life. Choosing you. Every single day." Victor kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Around them the party continued, their son laughing with friends, the future stretching ahead with all its complications and possibilities. Elena Cross had spent 6 years running from Victor Moretti, from the life he represented, from the feelings he evoked. Now, as Elena Moretti, she stood still, rooted, home. Not because she was trapped, but because she'd finally found something worth staying for. A family reclaimed, a love reborn, a future they'd build together, standing side by side in the dangerous peace they'd fought so hard to achieve. And in the end, that was worth more than all the freedom in the world.